Welcome to the Pencil Bob channel. I hope you enjoy my stories. Please like and subscribe, and hit that notification icon so you never miss out. Now on with the stories.
It all started back in high school, when I was just a regular kid trying to make it through the day without getting into too much trouble. But trouble, it seems, had other plans for me. So there I was, sitting in my room one night, bored out of my mind, when I got this crazy idea. I'd always been a fan of the National Lampoon, you know, that comedy magazine? Well, I thought to myself, why not make my own version of our school newspaper? It seemed like a harmless enough idea at the time. I spent hours working on it, coming up with jokes about the teachers everyone hated and making fun of all the stupid rules we had to follow. I was pretty proud of it when I finished, if I'm being honest. I only made 3 copies, though. Just enough to share with my closest buddies. The next day, I handed out those 3 copies before first period. I didn't think much of it at the time. But man, was I in for a surprise. After that first class, I walked out into the hallway, and it was like I'd stepped into some alternate universe or something. Everyone, and I mean everyone, was standing around reading something and laughing their heads off. At first, I was confused. What could be so funny? Then it hit me like a ton of bricks. They were reading my paper. Somehow, those 3 copies had turned into hundreds. My friends must have made copies, and then those people made more copies, and before I knew it, the whole school was in on the joke. Now, I gotta admit, part of me was thrilled. I mean, how often does a high school kid get to see their work spread like wildfire? But another part of me was starting to panic. I'd put my name on that thing as the editor, like an idiot. I knew there was gonna be hell to pay. Sure enough, it wasn't long before I got called into the vice principal's office. Mr. Johnson, he was this tall, skinny guy with a permanent scowl on his face. He sat me down and started going off about how inappropriate my paper was, how I'd disrespected the teachers and the school. "You think this is funny, young man?" he asked, waving my paper in my face. I wanted to say yes, 'cause clearly everyone else did, but I knew better than to push my luck. "No, sir," I mumbled, trying to look as sorry as I could. "Well, I hope you'll find your 3-day suspension equally amusing," he said, glaring at me over his glasses. 3 days. I couldn't believe it. I mean, I knew I was in trouble, but suspension? That seemed a bit much. But there was nothing I could do about it. I had to take my punishment. What I didn't realize at the time was that my little stunt had made me an enemy. Her name was Martina Papp, and she was the editor of the real school newspaper. Now, I'd never even talked to this girl before, but apparently, she had it out for me in a big way. It wasn't until I got back from my suspension that I started to notice something was up. People were looking at me funny, whispering behind my back. At first, I thought it was just 'cause of the suspension, but then I started hearing these weird rumors going around about me. One day, I overheard some kids talking in the cafeteria. "Did you hear about that guy who made the fake newspaper?" one of them said. "I heard he got kicked out of his last school for setting the gym on fire." I nearly choked on my milk. Where the hell did that come from? I'd never even been to another high school, let alone set one on fire. It didn't take long to figure out where these rumors were coming from. Martina Papp was on a mission to destroy my reputation, and she was doing a pretty good job of it. But that wasn't even the worst part. Martina started insulting me every time we passed in the halls. It was like she was waiting for me, just to throw some nasty comment my way. "Hey, loser," she'd say, or "nice hair, dweeb." Real original stuff, let me tell you. At first, I tried to ignore it. I mean, what else could I do? But after a while, it started to get to me. I couldn't understand why this girl, who I'd never even spoken to, hated me so much. So, I did some digging. I asked around, trying to figure out what her deal was. That's when I found out the truth. Apparently, my little parody paper had been a huge hit with the students. So much so that people kept asking Martina why the real school paper couldn't be as fun as mine. "Why don't you get that guy to write for the paper?" they'd say. Maybe then someone would actually read it. Now, I gotta admit, part of me felt a little bad for her. I mean, I hadn't set out to make her look bad or anything. But another part of me was thinking, well, maybe if your paper wasn't so damn boring, this wouldn't be a problem. See, the thing about our school newspaper was that it was heavily controlled by the administration. Every article had to be approved, and anything even remotely controversial got cut. Plus, Martina only let her friends write for the paper, so it was all pretty clique-y and exclusive. But still, I didn't think that was any reason for her to be treating me like garbage. I mean, come on, it's not like I'd done it on purpose. As the days went by, Martina's insults got worse and worse. It was like she was trying to come up with new ways to hurt me every day. And I gotta admit, some of them stung. One day, she caught me off guard in the hallway between classes. "Hey, idiot," she said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "I heard you failed another test. Maybe if you spent less time writing stupid jokes and more time studying, you wouldn't be such a loser." I felt my face go red as people around us started to snicker. That was it. I'd had enough. I'd been sitting on a nickname for Martina for a while now, one I knew would stick if I ever used it. I'd been holding back 'cause, well, it wasn't exactly nice. But at that moment, I decided she'd pushed me too far. So, I turned to her and said, as casual as I could, "Thanks for the advice, Martina Papp smear." The hallway went silent for a second, and then erupted in laughter. Martina's face turned bright red, and she stormed off without another word. Now, I know it wasn't the most mature thing to do. But man, it felt good to finally stand up for myself. And just like I thought, that nickname stuck to Martina like glue. For the rest of our time in high school, that's what people called her behind her back. But the story doesn't end there. Oh no, I had one more trick up my sleeve. A few weeks after the whole nickname incident, I decided to make another parody paper. This time, though, I was smarter about it. I didn't put my name anywhere on it, and I printed 100 copies myself. I got to school super early one morning, hours before anyone else would be there. I spread those papers all over the place, in lockers, on desks, even in the bathrooms. Then I sat back and waited for the chaos to unfold. Just like before, the paper was a hit. Everyone was talking about it, trying to figure out who was behind it. And just like before, I got called into the vice principal's office. Mr. Johnson glared at me across his desk. "I suppose you think you're very clever," he said, holding up a copy of the paper. I put on my best innocent face. "I don't know what you're talking about, sir," I said. "I learned my lesson last time. This must be some copycat trying to get me in trouble." He narrowed his eyes at me, clearly not buying it. But without any proof, there wasn't much he could do. "I'm watching you," he said as he dismissed me. As I walked out of his office, I couldn't help but feel a little smug. I'd gotten away with it this time. But you know what? As satisfying as it was in the moment, looking back, I'm not sure it was worth all the drama. High school's tough enough without making enemies, you know? Still, I gotta admit, every time I think about Martina Papp smear's face when I first called her that, I can't help but crack a smile. Maybe that makes me a bit of a jerk, but hey, we all have our moments, right? In the end, I guess the whole thing taught me a valuable lesson about the power of words. They can hurt, sure, but they can also make people laugh. And sometimes, when you're dealing with someone who's determined to bring you down, a well-timed joke can be the best defense. But let me tell you, if I could go back and do it all over again, I'm not sure I would. All that drama, all that tension, it's exhausting, you know? Maybe I would have just kept my head down, focused on my studies, and left the comedy to the professionals. Then again, who am I kidding? I was a teenager. We don't exactly make the best decisions at that age. And hey, at least it makes for a good story now, right? So there you have it. That's the tale of how I accidentally started a paper war, made an enemy I never meant to make, and gave a girl a nickname she probably still hates to this day. High school, man, what a time.
I would like to thank you for watching the video to the end. To encourage us to make more videos, please like, subscribe, comment, as well as share. Check out this other video if you haven't already.